Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. We just talked about your diagnosis at the age of 13. And we talked about how your mom found out that you went to the military ball and everything. With your mom being a nurse practitioner, did she talk to you about the HIV diagnosed instead of just going ballistic? She didn't. So what did you do as far as your own studies? What did you do?
Nothing.
Really?
Really. And I'm gonna tell you why. Now I'm not gonna share a name on this because I'm not going to. People have families, and I don't want to hurt anybody's family by sharing this. But I was actually put out of my mama's home, and I started living with homosexuals and trans women, for a better term, but they were really drag queens and trainers at that point in time. But you know, we were all living in Jefferson Place, a lot of us, and there was and I'm not going to use any names, but anybody watching will know. There was one particular queen that lived there that cooked for everybody, and she made sure everybody fed. She was like the mother of Jefferson Place.
Everybody has their mother.
Exactly. So I was working, and I was going to school, and I was just staying from house to house and trying to make it. And I had just got off of work at Pizza Hut, and I came home, and I was rushing home to get my son to play because I didn't have no mama to go to at that point in time. So I rushed home to get my son to play. And I'm gonna say a name. I'm gonna say a name. Not on this. The mother of Jefferson Place at the time told me, go and take such and such a plate. I haven't seen her all weekend. Now this individual I knew at that point in time was living with AIDS, not HIV.
Thank you for saying that, because I've had a conversation with several people that there is a difference within HIV and AIDS diagnosis. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
And so I went down there, I had the plate, I'm knocking on the door, and I'm knocking on the door, and I'm knocking on the door, and I'm like, what's going on? And I had this eerie feeling. The chills was just going through my skin. Say, I'm a baby. I'm not even 18 yet. And the chills were just going through me. And it was just like, it's hot outside. Where is the wind coming from? Like, really? It was really, really deep. It was really, really cold. And I felt something going on. And I couldn't understand what was going on. And it was something that was going to change my life forever. And to this day, it's embedded in my head. I literally kept banging and banging on the door. And I said, oh, it's hard not to say a name. I kept saying, come here, come here, come here. We can't get in, we can't get in, we can't get in. And so finally, me and the queen mother of Jefferson Place at that time, we bust the door down. We had already called the police. It's Jefferson Place. They not coming because basically all of us were homosexuals living there at the time. And so we came in to see her laying in the bed. And the smell that hit us when we opened the door was as if there had been maybe 10 dead rats in there. And I'm not saying that for any comical laughter. It was just woofing.
So she had been dead for a minute.
And what I remember her saying that she had seen her all weekend. I don't know, last time I had seen her was maybe like earlier that week. She was already on crutches. And at that point in time, when the AIDS epidemic was really, really heavy and people were really dropping dead for real, and I'm not being funny. When I say dropping dead, we, as in me and the people that I connect with that were living with HIV at that time, or even AIDS, because I was, were dropping dead. It was sad. So I remember laying and looking at her, and I'm like, what's going on? And she was trying to rush me out. Because I'm a baby, I'm a minor. So she was being parental force at that time and trying to get me out of the way. And I just was like a little child, seeing something happening at home. And you know when your mom and daddy used to fight and they tell you to go to your room, but you still want to see because you want to know what's going on. Ooh, yes, that was what's going on. But on a more serious note, I was like, what is going on? Her hair was baby fine. She had lesions before, sores, just all over her body, all over her face. And so, excuse me, whew, I gotta fight back. So, literally, for real, her skin was flawless in the front. I don't know how that happened. Hair was baby fine, silk, but it was just that thin. And we tried to lift her. It was like, come on, what's wrong? And when we lifted her, her body was already deteriorating from her back. And it was guts, and it was flesh, and it smelled. It was just like when we lifted her up, it was like, whew. And when I saw that at such a young age, that's what stuck with me. Because I said, that just didn't happen to her. That just didn't happen to him. It's going to happen to me. I felt like that was going to happen to me. Because my mama told me if you're gay, you're going to get AIDS and you're going to die.
Right.
Now, let me cover up for her. Now, she told me she said this just to scare me. She thought she was going to scare me out of bed that way. Just to kind of give a little reason on why she said something so harsh. She does love me and we are good at this point. But after seeing that, that's what started my whole life in a spiral. A downward spiral. I didn't care about nothing and nobody. Because I felt like I was going to die anyway. So, I was hurting, and I was in pain, and I was frustrated, and I was not in care.
How long was it before you got in care?
Consistently?
Okay, yes.
I didn't consistently get into care until I went to prison the second time in 2011.
Okay, so that takes me back to something that you said earlier, and correct me if I'm wrong. You said that you had a HIV diagnosis, and then you mentioned when you was telling the story about your friend that you saw, and you said that they had AIDS and everything. So, correct me if I'm wrong. Did it fluctuate for you? It didn't. You see where I'm going? Okay. Where are we now?
I had, well, what we consider AIDS diagnosis is, let me enlighten for people that don't know. Anybody with the CD4 count that's below 200 is considered to have AIDS. Anything above that is considered to be HIV. Now, me on the other hand, it's only been maybe 7 or 8 months that I can now say that I have an HIV diagnosis.
So when
but technically though, hold on. Technically they say if you do inquire an AIDS diagnosis, that's what's gonna stay for whatever the case may be. But now my CD4 count is above 200.
Great. So in my mind, in my studies, in my research, and I've heard this before, and that's the reason why I wanted to elaborate on that a little bit. When people say, when people say that you have a CD4 count below 200, you have AIDS, and it's above it you have HIV. And so when you just mentioned that once you're diagnosed as having AIDS, is with you and all this kind of stuff. But I'm like this, excuse me. If your CD4 count goes up, in my mind, you don't have AIDS anymore. You have HIV. So there's you can't say that a person has full-blown AIDS or what have you if their CD4 count is above that mark. That's just me. That's just AnDerecco.
I mean, that's how I feel too. But I have to go on what, our training says.
Right.
And what CDC says and
what CDC. Shut up. Go ahead, I'm listening.
I need my job. I love you.
Yeah, I love you.
No, for real. No, seriously, we have to just go by the information in which they formatted on their own platform and their own, whatever the case may be. But this how it was for me, and it changed my life.
So with the CD4 count and the T cell count, there's two differences. Our format, our plan for tonight is going to a whole different thing. But with CD4 count and T cell count and everything, viral load count, elaborate on that. I would, but I want somebody else to do it. So elaborate on that for us a little bit.
Well, the whole gist and the whole accomplishment of being able to stay here living with HIV and being healthy is to have the viral load suppressed, meaning having as little copies as possible of the virus.
So it's like less than 40 copies?
Right, and then it's basically you're undetectable. You can take a rapid HIV test and it can come back like non-reactive.
Right.
But you can't go off of that.
You'll still be HIV, right?
You can't go off of it. That don't mean you don't have it. That just means you don't have enough copies of the virus to show up on a rapid test. But even a rapid test itself is not going to be all that you take. If you have taken a rapid test, I hope that someone has made sure that you took a confirmatory test after that, because under the confirmatory test, which means by actually doing the test by blood and getting it tested to see and doing a Western blot on the blood to make sure that you don't have any traces of HIV within the blood or even been exposed to it, has been done. If it has not been done, I promise you, we need to get retested.
So how often would you, somebody that is gay, straight, black, white, red, yellow, pink, blue, purple, how often would you suggest someone to be tested? If you are sexually active, regardless of what sexuality orientation that you are, how often?
I personally would say every 6 months. I don't care what your risk behaviors may be,
right,
what your sexual preference is, or whatever the case may be, because just because you may be living your life as if you don't have any risky sexual behaviors, the person you're having sex with may be having risky sexual behaviors.
But I've been with this person for 2 years. We've been having sex. We've been, hypothetically, and we've been using a condom every time we have sex. And we decide that we want to go bareback or raw or without a condom. What would be your...
Both of y'all need to get tested. Immediately.
Because I say...
Go ahead. After that first test, we're still going to be using condoms on the regular. And if we are not positive at the time, I would suggest they get on PrEP.
Now, I just read an article recently about a man, well, just last week actually, about a man who has been confirmed of having HIV, and he's been on PrEP for like 2 years, and he's been on it consistently. So have you all, with your line of work, I'm not gonna call it out, but with your line of work, have you all received any information about that?
We have been briefed on that, and we have also had a meeting on that, so we are aware of that situation. Now, me personally, against anyone else's views, I don't really trust what is being said.
Okay.
Reason being is that in the good city of Jackson, Mississippi, I have recommended mostly everyone I sleep with to get on PrEP, and they're perfectly healthy and perfectly fine. And so, even when my CD4 count was below 200, and I was considered to have AIDS.
Right.
They're fine if they're healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But were you having protected sex or?
Of course not. That's the purpose of me wanting to put them on PrEP. Now, that's my personal thing. We're letting the tea out of the bag and we're letting it brew. And you know, after all, we are supposed to be sipping. So I'm just saying, I like everything natural. I don't like any protection. And I can do that.
Okay. And I respect you for that. Because I told you on the phone, when we talked, I said I like for us to be raw, candid, and
it's gonna be very raw.
It's
the only way I want it, baby. The only way I want it, baby. If I feel like I need to put something on it, I don't need it.
Alrighty. Okay. What do you think that the misconception of in society, the misconception of transgender?
The main misconception of being transgender is that we are all gay. That is not true.
Yes.
There are some transgender couples or transgender people that are actually heterosexual.
I learned that. I learned that. And see, the thing is about it, a couple of weeks ago when we first met, and I met a couple who the husband is transgender, and now the husband is female, and they are still married and have a very healthy, great relationship, and I admire that. I really do admire that. And to be honest with you, me being who I am, I had a misconception about a lot of things. Even being in the LGBT community. And now that I'm finally opening my own mind, because regardless, I can be black and have a misconception about a lot of things. I can be LGBT and have a misconception about a lot of things. If you're not open to it, because a lot of people, I've heard some people say, well, how can you be white and be gay and be racist? I can see how that could be. Because I was like that. I'm not white, partly, but everything else kind of flows with me. But I can see how that can happen. And if you are not willing to accept what's really out there, it's hard. And to be honest with you, with drag queens, with drag shows and everything, I could not stand a drag show. I really could not. I despised them, honestly. And it wasn't until 2009, I believe it was, when RuPaul's Drag Race first aired on Logo. And I saw them dressed as drag, and I saw them as men. And I'm like, okay. AnDerecco, are you watching this show for this, and that? Or are you learning anything from it? And I actually started learning things from it. And I started opening myself up to the reality of other spectrums of the world. Not just Jackson, not just Mississippi, not just the United States, but the world globally. And I pride myself, and yes, I can pat myself on the back for that, because I'm proud that I finally say that you have to accept people for where they are and who they are, because you want people to accept you for who you are.
Exactly.
How can I say that I'm this, and that when I can't accept John over there for who he is?
And the reason why that is because within the LGBT community, especially the LGBT community of African American descent, we are so divided.
Yeah.
The L does not kick it with the G.
Yeah.
The G gets down with the B, but the B doesn't even acknowledges the G. And then the T gets the leftovers with the B and the G, and don't necessarily get along with the G and the B, and may want to date the L. It's just all completely segregated. It's no real unity within it. But within the city of Jackson, Mississippi, I think as a whole, we are working on that. And it's nothing that no one is just cohesively trying to do. I think it's just a natural flow of the LGBT community within Jackson, Mississippi, that we are all learning to love each other on our own. Because now that when gay marriage has been legalized,
1 year coming up in June,
we start to literally see people's real feeling. People real feeling about how they feel about us. I mean, I think that's the beauty of social media, is that people are able to air out their feelings with no regret or shame. And so that lets us know how you really feel. Now step on that. So I really, really feel like one of the reasons why a lot of gay males don't understand transgender.
What about DL guys, download guys? Are they?
It gets hot, it gets juicy, it's time to sip.
Okay, I'm gonna let her sip, and we're gonna come back right after this. Okay, thanks.
Yes, yes, there you go.